producing these events for 9 years gave us a really unique perspective on the way the donating public thinks about charity at every level. And it was from that perspective that the ideas in this book that I wrote came. The book is called Uncharitable. It's from Tufts University Press. And the book is about transforming the way the donating public thinks about charity. It's about changing virtually everything we've been taught, because I think most of what we've been taught is upside down, it's backwards, it's really dysfunctional, and it's standing in the way of progress. So it's about radical things like getting people to stop asking this question, what percentage of my donation goes to the cause versus overhead? And I'll explain why in a moment. And it's about giving nonprofit organizations enormously greater freedom to spend money on the things we typically demonize as overhead, so that they can raise enormously greater sums of money and have some hope of achieving some fraction of the scale of these massive problems they're chartered to confront. Because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? So I want to just begin by looking at some big social statistics. In 1992, UNAIDS estimated 1.1 million adults and children died of AIDS in the world. Almost 20 years later, despite the introduction of protease inhibitors, that number was higher, at 1.8 million adults and children dying of AIDS every year in the world. In 1991, 43,000 American women died of breast cancer. Almost 20 years later, that number hadn't changed very much. In 2009, about 40,000 American women died of breast cancer. In 1992, the UN estimated 824 million people malnourished in the world. 10 years later, that number hadn't changed very much. And in 2009, the UN estimated 1 billion people malnourished in the world. Poverty has remained stuck at about 12% of the US population ever since we started measuring it. Now you could say, you know, some of these numbers are actually getting better as a percentage of the population, but no one could argue that these numbers are approaching anything remotely close to what we had dreamed. This is not the kind of progress we had hoped for when we got into this work, and it's certainly not the kind of progress we hope for over the course of the next 20 years. So the question that I've tried to ask is this whole system and the whole way we think about social change, is it capable of achieving Apollo-like aspirations on a timeline that dignifies the value of a human life? So perhaps, you know, a cure for breast cancer, not 40 years from now or 50 years from now or whenever it might happen to happen, but on a definitive, breathtaking, impossible timeline, you know, 7 years from now or 10 years from now. And if this system isn't capable of that, why isn't it? And what kind of a system might be? So my observation is that we have two rule books. We have one for charity, and we have one for the rest of the economic world. We blame capitalism for creating these huge inequities in our society. Presumably because capitalism is a very powerful thing, it would have to be to create huge inequities. And then we refuse to allow the nonprofit sector to actually use the tools of the free market and capitalism to rectify those inequities.